My name is Eleanor, and at 37, I've always been the black sheep of my family. Growing up, my sister Donna was the golden child, while I was the one who never quite fit in. 10 years ago, I accidentally discovered a secret that explained why I always felt like an outsider. When Donna told me I wasn't invited to her wedding, something in me snapped. I decided it was finally time for the truth to come out, even if it would destroy everything we knew as a family. Before I share how my sister's perfect wedding turned into our family's darkest day, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button. This story about betrayal, secrets, and long overdue justice is one you won't want to miss. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, Donna and I were just 2 years apart, but we might as well have been from different planets. I was the awkward, bookish older sister with wild curly hair that never behaved, and thick glasses that dominated my face. Donna was the pretty one with straight blonde hair and our mother's delicate features. "Eleanor, why can't you be more like your sister?" became the unofficial family motto. My mother Martha would sigh these words while brushing Donna's silky hair as I hunched over textbooks at the kitchen table. Our early childhood had some happy moments. I remember building blanket forts with Donna when we were 6 and 8, pretending we were exploring ancient ruins. We'd stay up late whispering secrets and giggling, until our father Kenneth would knock on the wall and tell us to go to sleep. Those golden days didn't last. When I turned 12 and Donna was 10, the shift became unmistakable. My mother started taking Donna shopping for special clothes while I got practical hand-me-downs. Kenneth, who worked long hours at his accounting firm, would light up when Donna performed her dance routines, but would merely nod distractedly when I showed him my perfect test scores. "Academic achievements are expected, Eleanor," my mother would say dismissively. "Social graces are what truly matter in life." Our Aunt Phyllis was another story entirely. She was my mother's older sister, unmarried and independently wealthy from a career in real estate. From my earliest memories, Aunt Phyllis showered Donna with expensive gifts and special outings. For me, there were books with inscriptions about expanding my mind. Practical gifts that lacked the glamour of what Donna received. "Your sister simply has that special quality that draws people to her," Aunt Phyllis once told me when I was 13, patting my shoulder consolingly. "Some people are just meant to shine." The incident that crystallized my place in the family hierarchy happened on my 16th birthday. My parents had promised a small celebration at our favorite Italian restaurant. I'd invited my few close friends, and for once, I thought the spotlight might actually be on me. Halfway through dinner, Donna, then 14, announced she'd been selected for the lead in the school play. The conversation immediately shifted. My mother ordered champagne for the adults to toast Donna's achievement. My father beamed with pride. My birthday cake arrived almost as an afterthought, the candles lit hastily while everyone was still discussing Donna's theatrical future. High school only widened the gap between us. I retreated into academics and the newspaper club, while Donna blossomed socially. She was elected homecoming princess as a sophomore, dated the quarterback, and maintained a perfectly curated group of popular friends. I overheard a mother once on the phone with Aunt Phyllis. "Eleanor is just so serious all the time. We worry about her social development. Donna, though, she's thriving. Such a natural with people, just like you were." By senior year, my only goal was escape. I applied to colleges on the opposite coast, seeking as much distance as possible from the constant comparisons and subtle degradations. When my acceptance letter from Berkeley arrived, my parents seemed almost relieved. "It will be good for you to find your own way," my father said during one of our rare direct conversations. What he meant was, "It will be good for us not to have you here, reminding us what Donna isn't." The day I left for college, Donna hugged me at the airport. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the sister I'd once built blanket forts with. "I'll miss you," she said, and I almost believed her. "Take care of yourself," I replied, knowing that everyone else would be taking care of her too. My mother's parting words still ring in my ears. "Try to make some friends out there, Eleanor, and maybe do something with your hair." As the plane took off, I felt the weight of being the family disappointment begin to lift. Little did I know that the real reason for my outsider status was buried in a secret I wouldn't discover for years. Arriving at Berkeley felt like my first real breath of freedom. 3,000 miles from my family, nobody knew me as Donna's sister or the awkward one. In California, I could reinvent myself completely. My freshman dormitory was a culture shock after the pristine suburbs I'd grown up in. My roommate Joyce was from Seattle, with bright purple hair and more confidence than I'd ever seen in a person our age. She took one look at me, unloading my practical, nondescript clothes, and declared, "We're going shopping this weekend." Joyce became the first person who seemed to value me exactly as I was. She laughed at my dry humor, dragged me to parties where I awkwardly learned to socialize without comparison, and listened when I hesitantly shared stories about my family dynamic. "Your family sounds like a bunch of superficial jerks," she announced after one particularly long venting session. "No offense, none taken," I responded, feeling both guilty and validated. Through Joyce, I made other friends. For the first time, I had a social circle that appreciated my analytical mind and didn't expect me to be something else. I cut my hair short, switched my glasses for contacts, and started wearing clothes that expressed my personality rather than trying to disappear. I discovered my passion for investigative journalism in sophomore year. There was something deeply satisfying about digging beneath surfaces, finding hidden truths, and giving voice to stories that might otherwise remain untold. I worked my way up from staff writer to editor at the university paper, developing a reputation for thorough research and unflinching reporting. Meanwhile, back home, Donna's life was taking unexpected turns. She'd enrolled at our state university but dropped out after 3 semesters, claiming college was stifling her creativity. This was the first time I'd ever heard her express interest in creativity. Through infrequent calls with my parents, I learned that Donna moved through a series of retail jobs, none lasting more than a few months. She cycled through boyfriends just as quickly, each one seemingly less suitable than the last in my parents' eyes. Yet somehow, their disappointment in her choices never reached the level of their fundamental disappointment in my very existence. "She's finding herself," my mother would explain. "It's a phase." If I'd pulled the same stunts, they would have cut off contact entirely. The double standard was so blatant, it would have been funny if it hadn't been so painful. During those college years, my contact with family dwindled to holiday phone calls and an occasional visit when I couldn't create a plausible excuse to stay away. Aunt Phyllis sent birthday checks with cards signed "Best Wishes," like I was a distant acquaintance rather than her niece. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a respected Bay Area newspaper. My focus on investigative pieces about corporate misconduct earned me modest recognition in journalism circles. I was building a life that felt authentic and purposeful. In my 3rd year at the paper, I met Howard, a photographer who often accompanied me on assignments. He was thoughtful and perceptive, with an ability to capture the emotional heart of a story in a single frame. We moved from colleagues to friends, to something more, my first serious relationship. Howard came from a tight-knit family and couldn't understand my reluctance to reconnect with mine. "Family is complicated," he'd say, "but it's still family." His gentle pressure led me to make more effort. I called home more regularly, and even agreed to a week-long visit for Christmas when I was 25. It was during this visit that the old dynamics snapped back into place so quickly it gave me emotional whiplash. Donna, then 23, had just started dating a doctor she'd met while waitressing at an upscale restaurant. My parents fawned over her and this new relationship prospect. My promotion at work warranted barely a nod. "That's nice, Eleanor," my mother said distractedly when I mentioned breaking a significant story about pharmaceutical testing irregularities. "Did Donna tell you her new boyfriend might take her to the Bahamas this spring?" The most awkward moment came at Christmas dinner when Aunt Phyllis joined us. Now in her mid-60s, she'd grown frailer but no less sharp-tongued. "Eleanor," she said, examining me over her wine glass, "you're looking professional. Journalism treating you well?" Before I could answer, she turned to Donna. "And you, my dear, are absolutely glowing. Love suits you." Later that evening, I overheard Aunt Phyllis talking to my parents about her estate planning. "I've been thinking about updating my will," she said. "As I'm getting older, these things need proper attention." My mother's response was immediate. "That's very sensible, Phyllis. We're here to help however you need." I thought nothing of it at the time. Why would I? I had no expectation of inheritance from an aunt who had always preferred my sister. The significance of that conversation would only become clear years later. The visit ended with my firm resolution to maintain distance. Howard's ideals about family reconciliation were lovely, in theory, but failed to account for relationships built on decades of subtle cruelty and dismissal. "They're never going to see me," I told him on the flight back to California. "They've decided who I am, and no accomplishment will ever change that." Howard squeezed my hand. "Then it's their loss." I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. 5 years before Donna's wedding, Aunt Phyllis's 70th birthday brought me back to Massachusetts for a family celebration. I'd recently broken up with Howard, who wanted marriage and children while I remained ambivalent. The thought of continuing family patterns terrified me, though I couldn't articulate why. The breakup left me vulnerable, questioning my ability to form lasting connections. The birthday party was held at my parents' house, a colonial-style home where every surface gleamed with my mother's obsessive housekeeping. Aunt Phyllis, now using a cane but still formidable, held court in the living room while relatives circulated with champagne and carefully composed appetizers. Donna fluttered around in an expensive-looking dress, playing the perfect hostess alongside our mother. I wore a simple black dress that prompted my mother's tight-lipped assessment. At least it's appropriate. After 2 hours of superficial conversation and barely concealed familial tensions, I needed air. I slipped away to the sunroom at the back of the house, a quiet space overlooking the garden where I'd often hidden as a child. The door to my father's adjacent study was slightly ajar, and voices drifted through the gap. My parents were arguing in hushed, urgent tones. I was about to walk away when I heard my name. "Eleanor has a right to know, Martha," my father said, his voice uncharacteristically firm. "Phyllis has been asking questions about telling her. It's been 30 years of this charade." "Absolutely not," my mother hissed. "It would only complicate everything. Why bring it up now? Eleanor has her life in California. Phyllis agreed this was best for everyone." "Best for everyone or best for you?" My father's question hung in the air. "You've punished that girl her entire life for something that wasn't her fault." My mother's voice turned brittle. "I raised my sister's mistake as my own daughter. I don't need lectures about fault." The words hit me like a physical blow. My sister's mistake. My own daughter. The room seemed to tilt around me as the implications sank in. "It was different with Donna," my mother continued. "She was actually ours. Of course it felt different." "That's no excuse for how you've treated Eleanor," my father countered. "Phyllis gave her to us because she couldn't raise her herself. That affair with James nearly destroyed her career, her reputation. We agreed to take Eleanor as our own. That meant loving her as our own." "I've done my duty," my mother said coldly. But asking me to feel the same about Phyllis's indiscretion as I do about my own child was always unrealistic. I backed away silently, my heart hammering so loudly I feared they would hear it. Somehow I made it through the sunroom and out to the garden, where I sank onto a stone bench, my legs no longer able to support me. The puzzle pieces of my life rearranged themselves with sickening clarity. I wasn't Martha and Kenneth's daughter. I was Aunt Phyllis's child, the product of an affair with a married man named James, whoever he was. I had been handed off to my aunt and her husband to raise, a shameful secret disguised as a normal family arrangement. It explained everything: the emotional distance, the constant comparison, the subtle resentment that colored every interaction with my mother. She hadn't failed to love me properly. She had never seen me as hers to love at all. I sat in the garden until my breathing steadied, then slipped back into the party with a hastily composed expression. I watched Aunt Phyllis with new eyes, searching her features for reflections of my own. The shape of her hands, I realized with a jolt, was identical to mine. Her laugh, though rarely directed at me, had the same unexpected throatiness as my own. She caught me staring and raised an eyebrow questioningly. I quickly looked away, unprepared for any conversation that might reveal my new knowledge. I made it through the remainder of the party in a fog of shock, making excuses to leave early. No one seemed particularly disappointed by my departure, least of all my mother, who was actually my aunt. Or Aunt Phyllis, who was actually my mother. The very categories of my existence had shifted beneath my feet. Back in my childhood bedroom, I pulled out old photo albums, searching for evidence I had missed. There it was, in photo after photo, once I knew to look. The careful distance my mother kept from me, even as an infant. The way Aunt Phyllis would look at me with a complex expression during family gatherings. The physical resemblances I shared with her, rather than with my supposed parents. A memory surfaced of being 12 years old, Aunt Phyllis adjusting my collar before a family photo. "You have good bone structure," she had said quietly. "Like mine at your age." It wasn't just a casual observation, I realize now. It was one of the few moments she had acknowledged our connection, however obliquely. I left the next morning without confronting anyone, mumbling excuses about work deadlines. The revelation was too fresh, too raw to address. I needed time to process the complete revision of my identity and family history. Back in California, I spiraled through waves of anger, grief, and bewilderment. The foundation of my life was built on a lie. Every childhood memory required re-examination. Every family interaction took on new, often painful significance. I considered confronting them immediately, but hesitated. The decades-long conspiracy of silence suggested they would only offer denials or minimizations. I needed irrefutable evidence before opening this Pandora's box. Moreover, I wasn't emotionally ready for the confrontation. The wound was too fresh. So I kept the knowledge buried, a secret about their secret, while I tried to rebuild my sense of self around this new reality. I was not Eleanor Walker, firstborn daughter of Martha and Kenneth. I was Eleanor Walker, the inconvenient evidence of Phyllis Walker's affair, handed off to her sister to raise while maintaining a respectable public image. I understood now why I had always felt like an imposter in my own family. I was one. 5 years passed in a strange limbo, where I carried the weight of knowledge without acknowledgement. I maintained minimal contact with my family, using my career as a convenient excuse. I had advanced to senior investigative reporter, specializing in stories that exposed long-buried truths, finding a certain ironic satisfaction in the parallel to my personal life. Then came the phone call that would set everything in motion. "Eleanor? It's Donna." Her voice held the artificial brightness I associated with her wanting something. "I have amazing news. I'm getting married." My sister, still legally my sister despite the biological revelation, had met Richard Harrington, the son of a banking executive. They had been dating for just 8 months. "That's wonderful," I said automatically. "Congratulations." "The wedding is going to be spectacular," Donna gushed. "Aunt Phyllis is insisting on paying for everything. We're talking about the Fairmont Hotel ballroom, at least 200 guests, a designer dress. Richard's family has connections to practically everyone in Boston society." As she rattled on about floral arrangements and catering options, I wondered if Donna knew the truth about our family. Had she been told that the woman she called Aunt Phyllis was actually my biological mother? Was she aware that we were cousins, not sisters? Or was she as much in the dark as I had been? "We're setting the date for June next year," she continued. "Mom suggested you might help with some of the planning since you're so organized." The request surprised me. I hadn't been included in family matters in years. I'd need to check my work schedule, I hedged. "Things are pretty busy at the paper." "Of course they are," Donna said with a hint of the old dismissiveness. "Just think about it. Mom said it might be good for us to reconnect before the wedding." The conversations that followed over the next several months were strained but civil. I agreed to help compile the guest list and research vendors, tasks I could do remotely. It seemed like a tentative olive branch, and despite everything, some part of me still yearned for genuine family connection. My first warning sign came 3 months before the wedding, when I flew in for what was supposed to be a dress fitting for the bridal party. Donna had asked me to be a bridesmaid in an email that read more like a business arrangement than a sentimental request. The bridal shop was upscale, with champagne offered to our small group as Donna emerged in a gown that probably cost more than my annual salary. My mother, Aunt Phyllis in her wheelchair, and 3 of Donna's friends from college cooed appropriately. "It's perfect," my mother declared, dabbing at non-existent tears. Aunt Phyllis nodded in approval, though I noticed she looked frailer than during my last visit. At 75, her health had begun a noticeable decline. She caught me watching her and gave me a small, inscrutable smile. When the conversation turned to bridesmaid dresses, Donna's friend Thelma asked, "Which color did you decide on, Donna? The sage green or the dusty rose?" Donna flicked a glance at me. "Actually, there's been a slight change of plans with the bridal party. We're keeping it smaller than originally thought." The implication hung in the air. I maintained my composure somehow, sipping champagne while Donna explained that Richard's sister had very specific ideas about the wedding party composition, necessitating some adjustments. Later, in the boutique's elegant restroom, I encountered Aunt Phyllis waiting for her turn. We were alone for the first time since my discovery. "Eleanor," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, "you look well." "Thank you," I replied stiffly. "So do you." She shook her head slightly. "No need for politeness. I know I'm fading." She hesitated, then added, "I've made some mistakes in my life. Serious ones." My heart raced. Was this the moment of acknowledgement? Before she could continue, my mother bustled in. "There you are, Phyllis. Let me help you. Eleanor, Donna is asking for your opinion on veils." The moment shattered. I returned to the main room, where Donna was already engrossed in a conversation that clearly didn't require my input. The next day, the call came. "Eleanor, we need to talk." Donna's voice had lost all pretense of warmth. "There have been some tensions during the planning process, and Richard and I have been discussing the guest list." My stomach tightened. "Okay." "The thing is," she continued, "this is the most important day of my life. Everything needs to be perfect. And you and I, well, we've never really connected, have we?" "Donna, what are you saying?" "I'm saying this isn't your wedding. It's mine. And I don't want to spend my special day worried about whatever issues you might bring with you." The words hit like slaps. "Are you uninviting me from your wedding?" "I'm making a difficult decision for the good of everyone involved," she said, sounding rehearsed. "Mom agrees it's for the best." "Does she now?" My voice had gone dangerously quiet. "She understands that family dynamics are complicated. And let's be honest, Eleanor. You've never really been part of this family in the same way as the rest of us." The statement was so close to the hidden truth that I wondered if she knew. "What exactly does that mean?" There was a pause before Donna said, "It means you're not invited to my wedding. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but that's my decision. I hope you can respect it." As the call ended, I sat in stunned silence. Then a cold clarity washed over me. Donna's cruel exclusion had broken something final in me. The time for secrets and silent suffering was over. I would find the complete truth, gather the evidence, and decide what to do with it. The family that had never truly accepted me had just made their biggest mistake. They had given me nothing left to lose. With the skills honed through years of investigative reporting, I began a systematic excavation of my family's buried secrets. My first step was accessing the family vacation home in Cape Cod, using the spare key my father had given me years ago for emergencies. If this wasn't an emergency of identity, I didn't know what was. The seaside cottage had been in my mother's family for generations. It stood empty most of the year now, visited mainly during summer months. In early April, with Donna's June wedding approaching, I knew it would be vacant. The house smelled of disuse and sea salt when I entered. Memories ambushed me at every turn. Family dinners where I always seemed to say the wrong thing. Beach outings where Donna was lavish with attention while I retreated into books. I pushed the recollections aside and focused on my purpose. Family documents would likely be in my father's study, a small room overlooking the back garden. The desk yielded nothing of interest, but the antique secretary cabinet against the wall held more promise. In its lowest drawer, beneath folders of insurance policies and property deeds, I found a metal box, locked with a simple key mechanism that my credit card easily defeated. Inside were photographs I'd never seen before. A younger Aunt Phyllis with a handsome dark-haired man, their poses suggesting intimacy beyond friendship. On the back of one photo was written, P. and James, Nantucket, 1984, the year before my birth. I studied the man's features with hungry attention. His eyes were shaped like mine. His smile revealed a slight crookedness to his front teeth, just like mine. Deeper in the box, I discovered letters bundled with faded ribbon. They were love letters between Phyllis and James, spanning several years. He was married, I learned, to a woman named Beatrice. Their affair had been conducted in secret meetups and passionate correspondence. The letters stopped abruptly in late 1984, around the time Phyllis would have discovered her pregnancy. One final letter, dated March 1985, shortly before my birth, was from James to Phyllis. My dearest P, I cannot express the depth of my regret for the position we find ourselves in. Beatrice has discovered everything and has given me an ultimatum. I cannot leave my children. I know this is unforgivable, abandoning you at this time, but I see no other path forward. Martha and Kenneth's offer is a blessing we must accept. The child will have a proper family, and you can maintain your standing. Perhaps someday, when the children are grown, circumstances may change. Until then, I will honor our agreement of silence. With deepest regret and enduring love, J. The evidence confirmed what I'd overheard, but seeing it in writing made it undeniably real. I was the unwanted complication, the problem solved by my transfer from biological mother to social mother, a transaction conducted for the sake of appearances. My search of the cottage yielded one more crucial discovery. In a locked cabinet in Aunt Phyllis's bedroom, I found her personal diaries, dozens of volumes spanning decades. I took them all, knowing time was limited before my unauthorized presence might be discovered. Back in my hotel room, I read through the night, tracing the story of my conception, birth, and the elaborate deception that followed. Phyllis had loved James deeply, but accepted she couldn't have a conventional life with him. When she discovered her pregnancy at 40, she panicked. Her career, her social standing, everything was at risk. Martha, already married with one daughter, offered a solution. She and Kenneth would raise the child as their own. Phyllis could remain in their lives as the doting aunt. The entries around this decision were tear-stained, the handwriting unsteady. Gave birth today to a perfect baby girl, one entry read. Held her for 1 hour before Martha took her. They're calling her Eleanor, after Kenneth's mother. I wanted to name her Catherine, after our grandmother. This pain is beyond description. Have I made an unforgivable choice? The diaries revealed something else. Phyllis had never stopped watching over me, in her way. She'd established a trust fund for my education that my parents had never told me about. She had followed my journalism career from afar, keeping clippings of my articles. Yet she had maintained the painful distance established at my birth, too afraid or too proud to break the decades-long charade. Most surprising were the recent entries. As her health declined, Phyllis had apparently begun to reconsider the secret. Eleanor deserves to know the truth, she had written just 6 months earlier. Before I die, I must find the courage to tell her. Martha is vehemently opposed, threatening to cut contact completely if I break our agreement. Kenneth seems torn. The burden of this lie has been too heavy for too long. Armed with the diaries and letters, I took the final step, a DNA test. The results, arriving 3 weeks later, provided scientific confirmation of what the documents had already told me. Phyllis Walker was my biological mother. I debated my next move carefully. Confronting my parents, or rather my aunt and uncle, seemed the logical first step. I called and arranged a visit, explaining I needed to discuss important family matters before the wedding. They received me in the same formal living room, where family discussions had always occurred, my mother perched nervously on the edge of the sofa, my father standing by the fireplace. I placed the diary and letters on the coffee table between us. I know everything, I said simply, about Phyllis, about James, about who I really am. The color drained from my mother's face. My father closed his eyes briefly, a gesture of defeat. How long have you known? He asked. 5 years. I overheard you arguing at Phyllis's 70th birthday party. 5 years, my mother repeated faintly. You've said nothing for 5 years. I learned from the best, I replied coldly. You've said nothing my entire life. What followed was a painful excavation of 32 years of deception. Yes, they confirmed everything. Yes, they had always intended to take the secret to their graves. Yes, they acknowledged that their treatment of me had been colored by the circumstances of my origin. We did our best, my father insisted. We gave you a good home, education, opportunities. You gave me everything except the truth and genuine acceptance, I countered. Do you have any idea what it does to a child to sense she's unwanted without understanding why? My mother's response chilled me. We took you in when your own mother couldn't keep you. A certain amount of gratitude would be appropriate. The conversation deteriorated from there. When I asked about Donna, another shock awaited me. Donna has known for years, my mother admitted reluctantly. She found some of the letters when she was 19. She agreed it was best to maintain the family story. The betrayal cut deep. My sister, no, my cousin, had weaponized this knowledge, using it to further secure her position as the true daughter while I remained the outsider. And what about Aunt Phyllis's money? I asked, recalling references in the diary to her substantial estate. My parents exchanged glances. Phyllis has decided to leave everything to Donna, my mother said. It's her decision. Is it? Or has Donna been manipulating her the way she's manipulated everyone else? Does Phyllis even have the mental capacity to make those decisions anymore? That's enough, my father said sharply. Whatever your grievances, this isn't the time to air them. Donna's wedding is weeks away. We're asking you to keep this private, at least until after the celebration. I laughed without humor. Donna has uninvited me from the wedding. Did she tell you that? My mother looked away. She mentioned there had been some tension. These things happen with weddings. Emotions run high. And you supported her decision to exclude me, I pressed. It's her day, my mother said defensively. We thought it best not to interfere. I stood, gathering the evidence I'd brought. I'll be making my own decisions about what happens next. My father followed me to the door. Eleanor, please, think carefully before you do anything drastic. There are many people who could be hurt. I turned to face him. I've been hurt my entire life by this secret. Did that ever matter to any of you? His silence was answer enough. My next stop was Aunt Phyllis, my actual mother. She lived in an upscale assisted living facility now, her health requiring more care than she could manage alone. I found her in a sunny private apartment, surrounded by antiques from her former home. Eleanor, she said when I entered, this is unexpected. I sat across from her and placed the diary from the year of my birth on the table between us. I think we're long overdue for an honest conversation. The recognition in her eyes was immediate. For a moment, I thought she might deny everything, maintain the deception that had defined our relationship. Instead, tears filled her eyes. I've imagined this moment for 32 years, she said softly, always with dread, yet also with hope. Tell me everything, I said. Not what's in the diaries or letters. Tell me from your own mouth. She did. The affair with James, a colleague at her real estate investment firm. The shock of pregnancy at 40. The fear of scandal in their conservative social circle. Martha's offer, that seemed like salvation at the time. I told myself it was for your benefit, she said. That you would have a proper family, 2 parents, stability. But that was only part of the truth. I was a coward. I chose my reputation over openly being your mother. Did you ever regret it? I asked, my voice tight with emotion. Every single day, she whispered. Watching you grow up from a distance, seeing how Martha treated you. It was a special kind of torture I deserved. Martha told me you're leaving everything to Donna in your will. Phyllis frowned. That's not entirely accurate. I've established trusts for both of you. Donna's portion is larger, but that's because she's planning a family with Richard and has expressed interest in maintaining the Cape House. You've built your own successful life in California. I hesitated before asking my next question. Does Donna know that Richard is only marrying her for her expected inheritance from you? Phyllis stared at me. What are you talking about? I explained what I'd learned through discreet inquiries about Richard Harrington. His family's banking fortune had dwindled through his father's poor investments. Richard had substantial gambling debts. He had specifically sought out women from wealthy families before meeting Donna. He's been pressuring her to ensure your estate is settled in her favor before the wedding, I concluded. That's why she's been so attentive to you lately. Phyllis sat back, visibly processing this information. Do you have proof of this? I can get it, I assured her. It's what I do for a living. A new resolve straightened her posture. I want to see it. All of it. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence of Richard's financial situation and dubious motives. I presented my findings to Phyllis, who received them with remarkable composure. So, she said finally, my grand gesture of finally providing for Donna is being manipulated by a fortune hunter, while I continue to fail you by maintaining our secret. That's one way to see it, I acknowledged. She reached for my hand, the first genuine physical contact between us that I could remember. What do you want to happen now, Eleanor? The truth is finally in your hands. What will you do with it? I had been asking myself the same question for weeks. The journalist in me believed in exposing truth at any cost. The wounded child in me wanted justice, perhaps even revenge. But another part, the part that had survived decades of emotional neglect to build a meaningful life, wanted something more complex. I want to attend my sister's wedding, I said slowly, and I want everyone there to know exactly who we all are to each other. Donna and Richard's wedding day arrived with perfect June weather, the kind of crystalline New England sunshine that wedding photographers dream about. The Fairmont Hotel had been transformed with thousands of white roses and crystal decorations that caught the light like diamonds. I prepared methodically that morning in my hotel room across town. I chose a simple but elegant navy blue dress, professional makeup, and arranged my hair in a sleek updo. I looked like someone who belonged at a society wedding, which was precisely the point. I packed my evidence in a leather portfolio and took a deep breath. My Uber arrived at the historic Trinity Church, just as guests were being seated for the 3 o'clock ceremony. The Gothic architecture loomed impressively, a cathedral-like setting for Donna's fairy tale wedding. Ushers at the entrance were checking invitations, but I waited until they were distracted with a large arriving group before slipping inside. The interior was breathtaking, with soaring columns and stained glass windows casting rainbow patterns across the assembled guests. At least 200 people filled the pews, exactly as Donna had boasted. I recognized family members, family friends, and Boston society figures from newspaper social pages. I spotted my parents in the front row, my mother in pale blue silk, my father uncomfortable in his tuxedo. Aunt Phyllis sat nearby in her wheelchair, attended by a nurse. We had not spoken since our last meeting, and I was uncertain whether she approved of my plan. Her expression gave nothing away. The organ music swelled, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. I slipped into a pew near the back, heart pounding but resolve firm. The wedding party began their procession. Groomsmen and bridesmaids in sage green dresses, exactly the color Donna had been considering the day she removed me from the bridal party. Richard appeared from a side door with the minister, taking his position at the altar. He was handsome in a conventional way, with the practiced smile of someone accustomed to charming people for personal gain. Knowing what I did about his motives, the smile seemed predatory rather than joyful. The music changed to the traditional bridal march. Everyone stood as the doors opened to reveal Donna in her elaborate gown, my father preparing to walk her down the aisle. She looked beautiful, radiantly happy in her moment of triumph. For a brief second, I faltered. Who was I to destroy this day? Then I remembered her words on the phone. "You've never really been part of this family." And my resolve hardened. The ceremony proceeded through the opening prayers and readings. The minister's voice echoed through the church. "Marriage is a sacred union, a covenant made before God and these witnesses." I waited, heart hammering, for the moment I knew would come in a traditional ceremony. It arrived right on cue. "If anyone present knows of any reason why this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The traditional pause followed, never expected to be filled. I stood. "I have something to say." A collective gasp rippled through the church. Donna's head whipped around, her expression transforming from shock to fury when she saw me. My mother half rose from her seat, while my father turned pale. Only Aunt Phyllis remained composed, watching intently. I walked steadily to the center aisle. The minister looked completely flustered, clearly unprepared for someone to actually object. "This is outrageous," Donna hissed. "Someone remove her." "Before anyone does that," I said, projecting my voice clearly, "there are some truths this family needs to hear. Truths that affect everyone present." Richard leaned toward the minister. "Continue with the ceremony. Ignore this interruption." But the damage was done. The assembled guests were riveted by the unfolding drama. "For 32 years, I continued, I've been living a lie orchestrated by the people who were supposed to love me most. I opened my portfolio and removed the key documents I'd gathered. I am not Eleanor Walker, daughter of Martha and Kenneth Walker. I am the daughter of Phyllis Walker and a man named James Bennett." The murmuring in the church grew louder. I saw recognition dawn on some of the older guests' faces. The name Bennett clearly meant something to them. I was given to Martha and Kenneth to raise because a successful single woman in 1985 couldn't admit to having a child from an affair with a married colleague. I turned to face my biological mother. "Isn't that right, Aunt Phyllis? Or should I finally call you Mom?" Phyllis's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded almost imperceptibly. Martha stood up. "This is absolutely inappropriate. This is Donna's wedding day." "Yes," I agreed. "The wedding day Donna specifically uninvited me from after learning I had discovered the truth. The same Donna who has known about my true parentage for years and used it to secure her position as the real daughter." I turned to Richard next. "And let's talk about why we're really here today. Richard Harrington isn't marrying Donna for love. His family's fortune is gone, he has substantial gambling debts, and he specifically targeted Donna because of her expected inheritance from Aunt Phyllis." I held up financial documents and private investigator reports. "I have the evidence right here. Bank records showing his accounts are nearly empty. Casino markers in Las Vegas. A pattern of dating wealthy women and breaking engagements when their financial situations changed." Richard's face contorted with rage. "You're insane! Security, remove this woman immediately." But the seeds of doubt had been planted. I could see Donna looking at him with new uncertainty. Donna has manipulated Aunt Phyllis into changing her will to leave everything to her, I continued. She's been lying to everyone about her relationship with Richard, just as this entire family has been lying about who I am for my entire life. My mother marched down the aisle toward me. How dare you ruin this day with your jealousy and delusions? That was when Aunt Phyllis finally spoke, her voice wavering, but determined. It's all true. The simple statement froze everyone. Phyllis gestured for her nurse to wheel her forward. Eleanor is my daughter. I gave her to my sister to raise because I was too cowardly to face the consequences of my actions. I have lived with that shame for 32 years. Martha's face crumpled. Phyllis, don't do this, not here. It's long overdue, Phyllis countered. I've let you dictate the terms of this deception for too long. Eleanor deserved better from all of us. She turned her wheelchair to face Donna directly. And you, who I spoiled to compensate for my guilt, who I trusted with my care and my estate, have been lying to me about this man and your feelings for him. Donna's perfect composure finally shattered. You always loved her more. Even when you were pretending not to be her mother, I could see it in your eyes. Everything I did was to secure the place in this family that should have been mine by right. By right? I echoed. Is that how you see family? As a competition for resources and affection? Easy for you to say, Donna spat. You got to escape to California, build your perfect little career, while I stayed here managing everyone's expectations and emotions. Yes, I knew the truth. Yes, I used it. What would you have done? I would have been a sister, I said simply. Or a cousin. Whatever we were supposed to be to each other, I would have chosen honesty and compassion. The wedding guests were watching in stunned silence, witnessing the complete implosion of what had appeared to be a perfect family. Richard, seeing his plans unraveling, made a strategic retreat toward a side door. Richard, I called out, leaving so soon? Before you hear what Aunt Phyllis has to say about her revised estate plans. He hesitated, calculation visible on his face. Aunt Phyllis spoke again. After Eleanor showed me evidence of your true intentions, I met with my attorneys. My estate will now be divided equally between Eleanor and a charitable foundation supporting single mothers. Donna will receive only the Cape House, which has been in our family for generations. Richard's expression hardened. Without another word, he continued his exit. Donna watched him go, the truth of his abandonment written clearly on her face. My father finally spoke up. This has gone far enough. The ceremony is clearly over. I apologize to all our guests. The minister, completely overwhelmed by the situation, simply nodded in agreement. Guests began to murmur and rise from their seats. The spectacle apparently concluded. I hadn't planned what would happen after my revelation. The exposure of the truth had been my only clear objective. Now, standing in the aftermath, I felt both vindicated and hollow. Martha approached me, decades of barely concealed resentment finally visible on her face. I hope you're satisfied, she said bitterly. You've destroyed this family. No, I replied quietly. The lies destroyed this family long ago. I just finally named what was already broken. As the church emptied, I found myself face to face with Donna, still in her wedding gown, mascara streaking her cheeks. I will never forgive you for this, she said, voice shaking with fury. I know, I acknowledged, but I forgive you. That's the difference between us. I turned away from her and walked to Aunt Phyllis, who sat alone now, her nurse having stepped away to give her privacy. Was this what you wanted? She asked softly. I wanted the truth, I said. The rest? I don't know yet. She reached for my hand. Will you take me home? I think I've had enough of this wedding. It was the first genuine request she had ever made of me as a mother to a daughter. I nodded and took the handles of her wheelchair, guiding her down the aisle and out of the church, leaving behind the shattered remains of the family we had pretended to be. The aftermath of Donna's non-wedding unfolded in waves of consequence that rippled outward from that dramatic day. The immediate hours were the most surreal, as I drove Aunt Phyllis, my biological mother, back to her apartment in the assisted living facility. I never imagined I would finally claim you as my daughter at what was supposed to be Donna's wedding, she said as we traveled through Boston's streets. Though perhaps there's a certain symmetry to it, one public ceremony replacing another. In her apartment, we talked more openly than we ever had before. She shared stories of my biological father, James, who had died of a heart attack 5 years earlier without ever acknowledging me. She had kept track of him from a distance, just as she had with me. He wasn't a bad man, she explained. Just a weak one. He chose the conventional path when faced with a difficult choice. Many do. Like you did, I observed without accusation. Yes, she admitted. Like I did. We can't change the past, Eleanor. I can only ask if there's any possibility of a future between us. A real one. The question caught me off guard. In my focus on exposing the truth, I hadn't fully considered what would come after. I don't know, I answered honestly. I think we'd need to start as strangers getting to know each other. 32 years of pretending can't be undone in a day. She nodded. Strangers is better than nothing. It's more than I deserve. Over the following weeks, the family fractured along fault lines that had been present but ignored for decades. My parents, who I now thought of as Martha and Kenneth, separated after 35 years of marriage. Kenneth moved into a small apartment, calling me with an awkward apology that seemed 3 decades too late. I should have stood up to your mother, Martha, years ago, he said. I knew how she treated you wasn't right. I just took the path of least resistance. Like my biological father, I noted. I suppose so, he acknowledged, though I did try to love you as my own. You tried, I agreed. But we both know it wasn't the same as with Donna. He couldn't deny it. The conversation ended with a tentative agreement to meet for coffee when I next visited Boston. A small beginning that might lead nowhere, but still more honest than anything we'd shared before. Martha refused all contact. She moved in with her sister Gloria, temporarily. The two of them apparently united in their condemnation of my actions. Through family channels, I heard she was telling anyone who would listen that I had staged a jealous rampage at the wedding out of resentment for Donna's happiness. Donna herself disappeared to Europe for several months. Social media posts showed her in Paris, Rome, Barcelona, always alone, always with the carefully curated appearance of someone living their best life. I recognized the performance from years of watching her manage perceptions. Behind the smiling selfies, I imagined a wounded woman trying to rebuild her sense of identity after both her wedding and her understanding of her place in the family had collapsed simultaneously. Richard Harrington apparently moved to Las Vegas, where a mutual acquaintance reported seeing him working as a host at a mid-tier casino. His social connections in Boston had evaporated once the truth about his financial situation became public knowledge. As for Aunt Phyllis, I began the strange process of getting to know my biological mother. We started with weekly phone calls that were awkward but gradually became more natural. 3 months after the wedding, I took a leave of absence from the newspaper and moved temporarily to Boston to spend time with her while her health continued to decline. I never thought I'd have this, she told me during one of our afternoons together, to simply sit with you and talk as mother and daughter, to see your expressions and recognize myself in them. I see you in my hands, I confessed. I always wondered why mine didn't look like Martha's or Kenneth's. Phyllis smiled. You have my hands and your father's eyes. His intelligence, too, though you've put it to better use than he ever did. Through Phyllis, I learned about James Bennett's legitimate family, including my half-siblings who knew nothing of my existence. After careful consideration, I reached out to them with a letter explaining the situation as gently as possible. The response came from my half-sister Janice, a professor at Columbia University. This is obviously shocking news, she wrote. But if you're open to it, I would like to meet the sister I never knew I had. Our first meeting in a New York coffee shop was tentative but not hostile. Janice had our father's coloring and my serious demeanor. Her brother Daniel joined us later, more reserved but equally curious. We discovered shared interests in literature and politics, genetic connections that had survived our separation. Dad wasn't perfect, Janice acknowledged over our second meeting. But he would have been proud of you, I think. He always valued intelligence and persistence. He just didn't value honesty enough to acknowledge his daughter, I pointed out. Daniel shrugged. True, but none of that is our fault. We can build something new if you want to. And slowly, we did. Not the instant connection of a lifetime shared, but the gradual building of adult relationships based on mutual respect and our unusual shared history. 6 months after the wedding, Donna finally returned to Boston. She requested a meeting through Kenneth, who had maintained contact with both of us. We met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant where neither of us was likely to cause a scene. She looked thinner, her designer outfit hanging slightly loose on her frame. The European sun had given her a glow that contrasted with the shadows under her eyes. "I thought I would hate you forever," she said without preamble as we sat down. For months, that hatred was the only thing keeping me going. "And now?" I asked cautiously. "Now I'm tired," she admitted. "Hating you requires too much energy. And some part of me has started to wonder if I would have done the same thing in your position." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. We talked for nearly 3 hours, excavating the complex dynamics that had defined our relationship. How we had both been pawns in a game designed by our parents and Aunt Phyllis. How we had each responded to our assigned roles, she as the golden child, me as the outsider. "I don't think we can ever be close," she concluded as our meeting ended. "Too much has happened, but maybe we can stop being enemies." "I'd like that," I said sincerely. "I'm selling the Cape House," she added. "Too many ghosts there. You should take anything you want from it before the sale." I nodded, appreciating the olive branch for what it was. Aunt Phyllis lived for another year, long enough for us to build a genuine, if belated, mother-daughter relationship. Her decline was steady but not rapid, giving us time for conversations that should have happened decades earlier. She revised her will one final time, establishing educational trusts for any children I might have, and leaving personal items of significance directly to me. "I can't undo my original mistake," she told me as we reviewed the documents. "But I can try to set things right from this point forward." When she died peacefully in her sleep, I felt the grief of losing a mother I had only just found. The funeral was small, with Martha conspicuously absent. Donna attended, standing at a distance but present nonetheless. Kenneth came with his new girlfriend, a kind woman who treated me with the natural warmth Martha never had. My half-siblings Janice and Daniel came to support me, a gesture that meant more than they could know. Joyce flew in from Seattle, hugging me fiercely and whispering, "I told you your family were jerks, but even I didn't imagine this level of dysfunction." The laughter that burst from me in that moment of grief felt like release. In the years since, I've built a life that feels authentically mine, free from the shadow of family secrets. I returned to California, but maintained connections with the new family members I'd discovered. Kenneth and I speak monthly, our relationship more honest, if not entirely comfortable. Donna and I exchange birthday and Christmas cards, a minimal acknowledgement that we are still connected by history if not by blood. Martha has never spoken to me again. I've made peace with that loss, understanding that she cannot face the mirror I hold up to her choices. My career shifted from investigative journalism to a book about family secrets and their generational impact, combining research with my personal experience. The writing process was therapeutic, helping me process the complex emotions of my journey. The most unexpected development came through my half-brother Daniel, who introduced me to his colleague Samuel. Our relationship developed slowly, built on a foundation of complete honesty about my complicated family history. When he proposed last year, I said yes without the reservations that had plagued my previous relationships. "Family is what we make it," Samuel said when I expressed fears about repeating toxic patterns. "The past informs us but doesn't have to define us." The truth that destroyed my family of origin ultimately freed me to build something more authentic. The painful revelation at Donna's wedding was both an ending and a beginning, the demolition of a structure built on lies and the clearing of ground for something new to grow. I've learned that family isn't necessarily who you're born to or raised by. Family is who shows up for you with honesty and acceptance. Sometimes those people share your DNA, sometimes they don't. The only thing that matters is the truth of the connection between you. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed how you saw yourself or your relatives? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that truth, however painful, is ultimately the only foundation worth building upon. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that it's never too late to begin again with honesty.